All right, so today we're going
Deep.
yeah,
I like it.
into Bitcoin mining
Nice.
with excerpts from Mastering Bitcoin Mining, Techniques and Tools for the Modern Enthusiast. And, you might be thinking, why should I care about mining? I just want to use Bitcoin.
Right.
But understanding mining really helps you understand Bitcoin
Yeah.
itself, like its security and its future.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Mining is often seen as this technical behind the scenes process,
Right.
but it's really the foundation of the entire Bitcoin network.
Yeah, so let's just start with the basics, like what exactly is Bitcoin mining?
So in the simplest terms,
Yeah.
Bitcoin mining is the process of creating new Bitcoins
Okay.
and verifying transactions to make sure that they're legitimate and added to the blockchain,
Okay.
which is Bitcoin's public record.
So how does that actually happen? Like,
Yeah.
are people digging in the digital dirt for little bits of Bitcoin?
Well, there's no digital shovel involved,
Okay.
but it is a competitive process.
Yeah.
So miners are basically using powerful computers
Okay.
to solve these incredibly complex mathematical problems.
Wow.
And the first one to crack the code gets to add the next block of transactions to the blockchain.
Okay.
And they are rewarded with newly minted Bitcoins.
So it's a race then.
Exactly.
A race to solve these problems and get the Bitcoin.
A race, yeah.
Okay.
And the book really dives into the intricacies of this race, the strategies involved, and the evolution of the technologies.
Right.
For example, you might have heard of hash rate. That's basically a measure of the computing power a miner is using.
Okay.
The higher the hash rate, the more chances they have of winning that race.
So the more computing power you have, the more Bitcoin you can potentially earn.
Exactly.
But I'm guessing it's not as simple as just like plugging in a computer and watching the money roll in.
Definitely not. It's
Yeah.
a business, and there are a lot of costs involved,
Okay.
like electricity, specialized hardware,
Yeah.
cooling systems, not to mention just the constant race to stay ahead of the competition.
So it sounds like a pretty intense operation.
It is.
Speaking of competition, the book mentions this halving event that happens every 4 years.
Yes.
What's that all about?
The halving.
Yeah.
This is one of the most fascinating aspects of Bitcoin mining, and it's directly tied to the economics of the entire system.
Okay.
So every 4 years, the reward that miners receive for solving those mathematical problems
Right.
gets cut in half.
So the reward is constantly decreasing.
It is.
Why would anyone even bother mining if that's the case?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And this halving mechanism is built into the system to control the supply of Bitcoin,
Okay.
making it scarce, just like gold.
Interesting.
And this scarcity, combined with growing demand, is what drives the value of Bitcoin up over time.
Oh.
So even though the reward is halved,
Yeah.
the value with each Bitcoin could potentially increase, making it still worthwhile for miners.
That makes sense.
And it incentivizes miners to become more efficient, invest in better technology, and find cheaper sources of energy.
Okay.
It's a constant drive for innovation.
So even this seemingly technical aspect of mining is directly tied to the economics of Bitcoin and the incentives that drive the whole system?
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
It highlights a key point. Bitcoin mining isn't just about technology.
Right.
It's about economics, strategy, and even environmental considerations,
Yeah.
as miners seek out renewable energy sources to power their operations.
So we've got this race to solve complex problems,
Yeah.
rewards that are constantly halving, and a system designed to create scarcity.
Yeah.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is.
But before you get overwhelmed,
Yeah.
let's focus on one key aspect,
Okay.
the blockchain.
Okay.
It's essentially a digital ledger where all Bitcoin transactions are recorded.
Yes, but it's not just any ledger.
Right.
It's a public, decentralized, and incredibly secure record of every single Bitcoin transaction ever made. And miners play a crucial role in maintaining this blockchain.
Okay.
They're the ones verifying the transactions, grouping them into blocks, and adding them to the chain.
Oh, okay.
They're the record keepers of the Bitcoin world.
So without miners, there wouldn't be a blockchain.
Right.
And without a blockchain, there wouldn't be Bitcoin.
Exactly. The two are inextricably linked.
Got it.
Miners provide the computational power and security that keeps the blockchain functioning.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the book also mentions different ways that blockchains can achieve consensus.
Right.
It talks about proof of work and proof of stake.
Yes.
What's the difference and why should we care?
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Consensus basically means how the network agrees on what's true,
Okay.
which transactions are valid, and which blocks get added to the chain.
Right.
Bitcoin uses proof of work, the system we've been discussing, where miners prove their work by solving those complex math problems.
Right.
It's a very energy-intensive process, but also very secure.
Okay, so proof of work, lots of computing power, lots of energy, but very secure.
Exactly.
What about proof of stake? How does that work?
Proof of stake is a different approach.
Okay.
So instead of miners competing to solve problems, you have validators
Okay.
who essentially stake their own coins to participate in the process.
Interesting.
It's a much more energy-efficient system,
Okay.
but it comes with its own set of challenges and trade-offs in terms of security and decentralization.
So proof of stake is like a different game with different rules and potentially different implications for the security and stability of the network.
Exactly. And the book goes into detail about the pros and cons of each system.
Right.
It's a debate that's still ongoing within the cryptocurrency world.
That's really fascinating.
It is.
It's like there are different schools of thought on how to best maintain a secure and decentralized blockchain.
Exactly. And understanding these different approaches is crucial for anyone who wants to really understand the complexities of Bitcoin and the future of cryptocurrency in general.
So we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
What Bitcoin mining is, the role of miners, the halving event, the blockchain, and different consensus mechanisms.
Yes.
But what about the actual equipment involved?
Yeah, right.
The book talks about CPUs, GPUs, and something called ASICs.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us?
You bet. The evolution of mining hardware is a fascinating story in itself.
Okay.
In the early days of Bitcoin, people were mining using their regular computers,
Uh-huh.
the central processing units, or CPUs.
Right.
But as the network grew and the competition increased, miners started looking for more powerful solutions.
So they needed something that could crunch those numbers faster
Exactly.
and give them an edge in the race.
Exactly. And that's where GPUs came in.
Okay.
These are graphics processing units.
Yeah.
Originally designed for rendering images and videos.
Right.
But they happen to be very good at the kind of calculations needed for Bitcoin mining.
Oh, wow.
So for a while, GPUs were the king of the mining world.
But the book says that ASICs eventually took over.
Yeah.
What are those and why are they so special?
ASICs are application-specific integrated circuits,
Okay.
which means they're chips designed specifically for Bitcoin mining.
Wow.
And they are incredibly efficient at it, blowing CPUs and GPUs out of the water in terms of hash rate.
So ASICs are like the specialized tools of the trade,
Yeah,
purpose-built for Bitcoin mining
exactly.
and nothing else.
Their arrival changed the mining landscape dramatically, making it much more specialized and, in some ways, less accessible for the average person.
Oh, wow.
It's like the difference between panning for gold in a stream
Right.
and operating a massive mining operation.
So if someone wanted to get into Bitcoin mining today, would they absolutely need to invest in these ASICs?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Could they still mine from home with a regular computer?
Yeah.
That's a great question, and it leads us to the next chapter in our deep dive.
Okay.
The different approaches to mining.
Okay.
From solo mining at home to joining massive mining farms. So you want to know if you can still mine Bitcoin from home.
Yeah. Like, is it even worth trying to mine on your own anymore?
Yeah.
Or if you need to be part of some massive operation?
Well, the book actually breaks down the pros and cons of each approach.
Okay.
Home mining is definitely still possible,
Okay.
and it can be a great way to kind of learn the ropes
Yeah.
and get a firsthand understanding of how the process works.
Okay.
But you're right, with a regular computer or even
Right.
a few GPUs, your hash rate's going to be significantly lower
Right.
compared to those specialized ASICs.
So you're probably not going to strike it rich mining from your basement.
Right.
But it could be a good way to just like dip your toes in the mining pool, so to speak.
Exactly. It's more about the educational value and the
Yeah.
satisfaction of participating in the network
Right.
directly. If
Mhm.
you're serious about mining for profit,
Yeah.
you'll likely need to consider joining a mining farm.
Okay. So what exactly is a mining farm? Is it literally a farm with rows of computers growing Bitcoins?
Not quite.
Okay.
Think of it more like a data center,
Okay.
packed with rows upon rows of those powerful ASIC miners,
Wow.
all working together to solve those complex math problems.
So it's a massive industrial scale operation.
Yeah.
The book mentions that location is crucial for these mining farms.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, a few key factors come into play.
Okay.
First and foremost is electricity costs.
Right.
Remember, these ASIC miners are power-hungry beasts.
Yeah.
So having access to cheap electricity is absolutely essential for profitability.
That makes sense. You're not going to make much money if your electricity bill is eating up all your Bitcoin rewards.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's the issue of cooling.
Right.
All those computers generate a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So a cool climate can significantly reduce cooling costs.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of mining farms located in places like Iceland,
Right.
Canada, where temperatures are naturally lower.
So it's not just about the technology. It's also about geography and even climate.
Absolutely. And the book also touches on the regulatory landscape,
Okay.
which can vary wildly from country to country.
Right.
Some governments are very welcoming to mining operations, while others are more restrictive.
Yeah.
So that's another factor that needs to be considered.
So it sounds like setting up a successful mining farm is a pretty complex undertaking.
It is.
Okay.
It's a business.
Right.
And just like any business, it requires careful planning, research, and management.
Okay, now what about those of us who might not be ready to invest in an ASIC farm,
Right.
but still want to get in on the mining action?
Yeah.
The book mentions something called mining pools.
Yes.
Can you explain how those work?
Mining pools are a great way for individual miners with limited resources to
Right.
combine their computing power and increase their chances of earning Bitcoin rewards.
So it's like teamwork.
Exactly.
Instead of going it alone, you join forces with other miners
Yeah.
and share the rewards if you're successful.
Exactly. It's like a lottery syndicate
Okay.
where everyone contributes their tickets, and if one person wins,
Right,
they split the prize.
right.
Mining pools work in a similar way, allowing miners to pool their hash rate and increase their odds of finding a block.
That sounds like a pretty smart strategy, especially for smaller miners who might not have the resources to compete with those big mining farms.
It definitely can be, but as with any collaborative effort, there are some trade-offs to consider.
Yeah.
You'll be sharing your rewards with the other members of the pool.
Right.
And most pools also charge a fee for their services.
So you're getting more consistent payouts, but you're also giving up a portion of your potential earnings.
That's right. And then there's the issue of centralization,
Okay.
which is a hot topic in the Bitcoin world.
Right.
If a few large mining pools control a significant portion of the network's hash rate,
Right.
it could potentially undermine the decentralized nature of Bitcoin.
So there's this ongoing tension between the benefits of collaboration
Yeah.
and the potential risks of centralization.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that makes this space so dynamic
Right.
and constantly evolving. There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
And miners are always looking for ways to optimize their strategies, improve efficiency, and adapt to the changing landscape.
Speaking of adapting, the book dives into some of the advanced techniques that miners use to try and gain an edge.
Yes.
Mentions overclocking and performance tuning.
Right?
What are those all about, and are they risky?
Those are definitely techniques for more experienced miners.
Okay.
Overclocking essentially means pushing your hardware beyond its normal limits
Okay.
to try and squeeze out more performance.
So it's like putting your foot on the gas pedal, making those ASICs work even harder.
Exactly, but just like pushing a car engine too hard, there
Yeah.
are risks involved.
Yep.
You could damage your equipment if you're not careful.
Right.
So it's not something to attempt without a good understanding of the technical details.
So overclocking is for the pros,
Yeah.
for the folks who really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
What about performance tuning?
Yeah.
Is that similar?
Performance tuning is more about optimizing your setup to make sure you're getting the most out of your hardware
Okay.
without necessarily pushing it to its limits.
Okay.
This could involve things like adjusting fan speeds for optimal cooling,
Wow.
tweaking software settings, or even experimenting with different mining algorithms.
So it's more about fine-tuning your operation to make sure everything is running as smoothly and efficiently as possible.
Exactly. It's like the difference between driving a car with a heavy foot
Right.
and driving it with finesse, getting the best mileage and performance without putting unnecessary strain on the engine.
It sounds like there's a lot to learn and a lot to keep up with in the world of Bitcoin mining.
It is.
But I'm curious, what about the future? What does the book say about where Bitcoin mining is headed?
That's a great question, and it's one that the book tackles head on. There are several trends on the horizon that could significantly impact the future of mining.
Okay, so what are some of the key things that we should be looking out for?
Well, one of the biggest trends is the increasing focus on sustainability.
Oh, okay.
As we've discussed, Bitcoin mining consumes a lot of energy,
Right.
and there's growing concern about the environmental impact.
Yeah. Are miners starting to look for greener ways to power their operations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The book highlights the rise of mining farms powered by renewable energy sources, such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric.
Wow.
This is not only good for the planet,
Right.
but it can also be economically advantageous in the long run.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
But what about those halving events we talked about earlier?
Right.
How will miners adapt as the rewards for mining Bitcoin continue to decrease?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
The book suggests that miners will need to become even more efficient and innovative to stay profitable.
Right.
We might see even more specialized hardware emerge.
Yes.
And the competition for cheap, renewable energy sources will likely intensify.
So it's like an evolutionary pressure cooker,
Yeah,
constantly pushing miners to adapt and find new ways to thrive.
exactly. And it's not just about technology and economics.
Oh.
The book also dives into the social and political aspects of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about Bitcoin mining as more than just like this technical process.
Yeah.
You've got the economics, the technology, the environment,
Right.
and now you're saying there are social and political dimensions too.
Absolutely. The book dives into how Bitcoin mining is intertwined with global politics
Wow.
and regulations.
Okay.
So different countries have different stances on cryptocurrency,
Right.
and those stances can have a huge impact on where miners set up shop,
Right.
how they operate.
So it's like a global chess game with governments and miners
It is.
and making strategic moves and trying to anticipate each other's actions.
Constantly evolving. Some countries are rolling out the red carpet for miners, offering tax breaks and other incentives,
Wow.
while others are cracking down, imposing restrictions, or even outright bans.
Wow.
It's a dynamic landscape, and miners need to be aware of the political climate in different regions.
It sounds like Bitcoin mining is truly a global phenomenon,
It is.
with players from all over the world vying for a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But who are these players? The book mentions everything from individual hobbyists to massive corporations.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes the space so fascinating. You've
Yeah.
got this incredible diversity of participants,
Right.
each with their own motivations and goals.
Right.
You have individuals who are passionate about Bitcoin and want to support the network.
Right.
You have entrepreneurs looking to make a profit.
Yeah.
You even have governments getting involved, setting up their own mining operations.
Wow. So it's like a microcosm of the world itself,
Yeah.
reflecting all the different interests and ideologies
Yeah.
at play, but with so much at stake.
Right.
Are there ethical considerations that come into play?
That's a crucial point, and one that the book doesn't shy away from.
Okay.
One of the biggest concerns is the potential for mining to exacerbate wealth inequality.
Like,
As mining becomes more specialized and requires more resources,
yeah.
it could become increasingly difficult for smaller players to compete,
Right.
leading to a concentration of power and wealth in the hands of a few.
So it's like any industry where the bigger players have an advantage.
Right.
But in this case, it could potentially undermine the decentralized nature of Bitcoin itself.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have these open discussions about these issues
Yeah.
and to explore ways to ensure that the benefits of mining are distributed more fairly.
Right. So there are these big questions about the future of mining, its impact on the environment, its role in society, and the potential for both positive and negative consequences.
Yeah.
It's a lot to consider.
It is, but that's what makes this space so compelling.
Yeah.
It's not just about the technology. It's about the people, the ideas,
Yeah.
and the potential to shape the future of finance,
Right.
and even society as a whole.
It seems like the book is a real call to action,
It is.
encouraging readers to not just learn about Bitcoin mining,
Yeah.
but to actively engage with it, think critically about its implications, and contribute to its evolution.
Absolutely. It's an invitation to join a global experiment that is still unfolding,
Right.
to be a part of something that is challenging traditional notions of money, power, and control.
This deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about.
Good.
It's clear that Bitcoin mining is far more complex and nuanced than I ever imagined.
It is.
Hopefully our listeners feel the same way.
I hope so too. Whether you decide to become a miner, an investor, or simply an informed observer, the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is here to stay, and understanding its foundations is crucial for navigating the future.
So everyone listening, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.
Keep diving deep.
The future of Bitcoin is yet to be written. And who knows, maybe you'll be one of the authors.
Maybe so.
Until next time, keep diving deep.